I'd like to call the regular meeting of April 11th, 2022 to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, will the secretary please call roll?
Commissioner Alderete,
Here.
Commissioner Calderon,
Present.
Commissioner McLaughlin, Commissioner Ramos, Commissioner Wu,
Here.
Vice Chair Pham,
Here.
Chair Morrissey. Chair, you have quorum.
Before we begin, I'd like to remind my fellow commissioners to turn your microphones on when speaking and off when not speaking. And when speaking, please place the microphone about 4 inches away from you. Thank you. Members of the public may attend the Plan Commission meetings in person or virtually via Zoom. I now invite the Commission Secretary to describe the way the public can access and participate in this meeting.
This meeting is being live streamed via our portal at www.santaaana.primegov.com/public/portal and to YouTube, www.youtube.com/City of Santa Ana videos. If you would like to provide a public comment, you may do so in the following ways. Join the meeting via Zoom, entering meeting ID 86160795239. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, select the hand icon to let us know you'd like to speak. You will be called upon by the name you entered, or join by calling in to 669-900-9128. Enter meeting ID number 861607952239. When the item that you would like to comment on is being discussed, press *9 to let us know you'd like to speak. You will be called upon by the last 3 digits of your phone number. After you are called upon, you must press *6 to unmute yourself. For those who are attending this meeting in person and would like to provide a public comment, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. All speakers will have 3 minutes to speak, and I will alert you when your time is up.
Moving on to public comments and non-agenda items. Secretary, does anyone wish to speak?
If you are attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you are calling in and would like to comment on this item, please dial *9 and press *6 to unmute yourself. I will wait a few seconds. Chair, we do not have any speakers.
Thank you. Now moving on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve item A, minutes from March 28th, 2022, and item B, excuse absence of Chair Morrissey?
I second.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please call for a roll call. Vote.
Commissioner Alderete,
Yes.
Commissioner Calderon,
Aye.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pham, Chair Morrissey. Motion has been approved with majority of vote with Chair Morrissey absent.
Thank you. That concludes the consent calendar. Moving on to the business calendar. I will now review the process for the public hearing so that everyone knows what to expect. Staff will provide a presentation and answer questions from the commission. The public hearing will be open. The applicant will be given the opportunity to speak, limited to 15 minutes. Members of the public will be given the opportunity to comment, limited to 3 minutes. The applicant will be given the opportunity to respond to the comments made by the public, limited to 5 minutes. The public hearing will be closed. Discussion will return to the commission with formal actions taken to approve, conditionally approve, deny, or continue review of the application. Please consider the following suggestions when organizing your comments. Please state your name and address. It's voluntary. State whether you support, oppose, or neutral to the proposal. Your statement should include all pertinent facts within your knowledge. Avoid gossip, emotion, and repetition. A clear and concise and non-repetitive argument is most effective. Now, this is the time and place for the public hearing on item number 1 for the property located at 4501 West MacArthur Boulevard. Please note, decisions on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 days by any interested individual or party. Before we begin, do any of the commissioners have anything they wish to disclose with regards to this item?
Mr. Chairman, for the first item, CUP number 2022-07, I am going to recuse myself as I'm a former senior executive at Public Storage. I have a significant amount of stock and I occasionally provide advice to the company.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll be leaving now and I'll come back.
Commissioner Calderon,
Nothing to disclose.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
No, I have no issues.
Commissioner Ramos,
No disclosures.
Commissioner Wu,
Absolutely nothing.
and no disclosures on my end. Have we received any written communication?
We have not received any written communication.
Now, Mr. Eric Martin will now provide a brief presentation.
Good evening, Vice Chair Pham and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Eric and I am the case planner on the first item on the agenda tonight. This is from AT&T and it's for a new major wireless communications facility. The conditional use permit number is CUP number 2022-7. It's located at 4501 West MacArthur Boulevard within Ward 1. And Will Kazemi is with SmartLink and he's representing AT&T tonight and he is requesting approval of the CUP number 2022-7 to allow the construction of a 60-foot high major wireless communications facility that is disguised as a mono eucalyptus. And staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving CUP number 2022-7 as conditioned. Here's an aerial view of the subject site. You have the property developed with a public storage building that's located along the south property line and is essentially fronting MacArthur Boulevard. And then you have the parking lot to the rear of that storage building, and the facility is actually going to be located in the rear parking lot towards the rear quarter of the property itself. The general plan designation for the site is industrial. It's in the heavy industrial or M2 zoning designation. To the north, you have manufacturing uses. To the east, you have the Okta maintenance and operations base. To the south is the city of Costa Mesa with some research and development uses. And to the west is the city of Fountain Valley with a retail shopping center. The total lot size is 4.36 acres and the total equipment area is 450 square feet, sorry. Here's a site photo as you're facing north, looking towards the public storage building itself. The actual facility will be behind the gates that you can see to the right side through the drive aisle here where my cursor is. So to review the proposed project, it again is for a new 60-foot high wireless communications facility, and it is located in that rear parking lot. The equipment is going to be screened by an 8-foot wrought iron fence enclosure with perimeter landscaping around that enclosure. And then additional on-site landscape improvements is included as well. They will be planting an additional 2 eucalyptus trees on the site along the west and east property lines as well. Here is the site plan and the equipment plan. Highlighted in red on the left site plan is the proposed facility location. And it is important to note that there's also an existing facility that's a major wireless facility for Verizon, and it's highlighted in blue here. And I would like to also note that the applicant AT&T has indicated that they could not co-locate on that facility because there was not sufficient area to co-locate on that facility. And to the right, you have the equipment plan itself, and along the top here, you have a generator, and then you have an equipment enclosure. And the bottom left corner here, you have the actual tower itself. Here are a couple elevations of the mono-eucalyptus facility. You can see on the left elevation here that there will be a eucalyptus tree planted in order to provide that further stealthing for the facility. Here's a photo simulation looking north from MacArthur Boulevard. The proposed mono-eucalyptus facility is highlighted here. That brings us to the project analysis. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, the existing facility does not have enough room to co-locate for AT&T as indicated by their staff. And this facility will reduce gaps in cellular coverage for AT&T customers and for the community as a whole. The location is optimal for stealthing and screening since it is within a heavy industrial area that's surrounded by industrial uses. The facility will not adversely affect the general plan, as cellular facilities that are designed to be compatible with the surrounding environment are consistent with the goals and objectives of the land use element. And then lastly, conditions of approval, property maintenance agreement, and standards in the Santa Ana Municipal Code will address any potential negative impacts. This is categorically exempted from CEQA per a Class 3 exemption for new construction or conversion of small structures. It involves the construction of a small enclosure and a wireless facility. So environmental review number 2021-19 is going to be filed for the project, and there is no fiscal impact associated with this project. With that, staff's recommendation, is to adopt a resolution approving CUP number 2022-07 as conditioned. That concludes my presentation. We have Tyler Kent here with SmartLink, who's available for any questions from the commission, and I am available for questions as well.
Thank you, Eric. Does the commission have any questions for staff?
I have no
Commissioner Collins.
questions.
Commissioner McLaughlin?
McLaughlin or Calderon?
No questions. Okay. Commissioner Wu
No question.
and Commissioner Ramos?
No questions.
Okay. And just a quick clarification, since it borders Costa Mesa and Fountain Valley, is it something that we need to discuss with the other jurisdiction?
I believe they would have been notified.
Right.
Is that correct? The city of Fountain Valley and Costa Mesa. Part of the, yeah. So they would have been notified as part of the radius and the notification list. But other than that, that's as far as our outreach would go.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, have we received any written communications?
No written communications for this item.
The public hearing is now open. Would the applicant like to speak on the matter?
Good evening. My name is Tyler Kent. I'm here representing AT&T on behalf of SmartLink. Here to answer any questions and also thank Eric for his hard work on the project getting to this point, both the design, location, and getting us here this evening. Does the council have any, or the commission have any questions for me to answer? Happy to do so.
Does any of the commissioners have any comments, questions for the applicant? Okay.
Just a question, what's the standard height for the towers?
60 feet.
60, okay.
There's no questions, comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We will now take comments from the public. Secretary, do we have any members from the public that would like to comment?
If you are attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into the secretary. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you are calling in and would like to comment on this item, please dial *9 and press *6 to unmute yourself. I will wait a few seconds. We have no speakers.
Seeing no comments, are there any final remarks from either staff or the applicant? Okay, thank you. The public hearing is now closed. Does the commission have any final questions for staff? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve this matter?
I move.
Motion by Commissioner Wu,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Calderon. Madam Secretary, please call vote, roll call vote.
Commissioner Aldereti, Commissioner Calderon,
Aye.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pham,
Aye.
Chair Morrissey. Motion has been approved with majority vote, with Commissioner Aldereti abstaining and Chair Morrissey absent.
Thank you. Can we get Commissioner Aldereti into the chambers again? Okay, this is the time and place for the public hearing on item number 2 for the property located at 2909 South Dahmer Street. Please note, decision on this matter is final unless appealed within 10 days by any interested individual or party. Before we begin, do any of the commissioners have anything they wish to disclose in regards to this item? Seeing none, we'll move on. Ms. Heidi Jacinto will now provide a brief presentation.
Mr. Chair, good evening, Chairman, Vice Chair. Good evening, members of the commission. Item number 2 this evening is for Compass Bible Church. The conditional use permit application is 2022-04. The project address is 2909 South Daimler Street, located within Ward 6. The project, Shelley Thompson, representing Compass Bible Church, the applicant on behalf of Daimler Commerce Partners. The owner is requesting approval of CUP 2022-04 to allow for the establishment of a church within the professional zoning district. Staff's recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving CUP 2022-04 as conditioned. The project site is located within the Professional Administrative Office General Plan designation within the Professional Zoning District. Surrounding land uses include SC Cheer Company to the north. To the east, we have an industrial building. To the south, we have an office building. And to the west, an office park. The lot size is approximately 2.8 acres. This is a photo of the site. The proposed project includes converting the change of use from a warehouse to a church to establish Compass Bible Church. In addition, interior improvements are proposed to construct the auditoriums, offices, and meeting rooms, as well as exterior improvements that would include removing the roll-up doors that were utilized by the warehouse and replacing with new storefronts, doors, replacing mechanical equipment, and restriping the parking lot, installing bike racks, and making ADA improvements to the parking. Now we have here the site plan. The larger area would be the area, the space being occupied by the church. I have here the floor plan of the first floor and the second floor. This is the primary elevation that would front Daimler. To assess the project, this would be a permanent location for Compass Bible Church. Currently, they have 2 other locations within the city of Tustin and Huntington Beach. So this would allow for fellowship in Santa Ana to visit their church locally. This is also located away from sensitive land uses, approximately 0.26 miles. The service hours would primarily take place during off-peak hours for the industrial park, so focused on evenings or weekends. This project is not anticipated to negatively impact the parking in the industrial park. Additionally, this will not affect the general plan and is consistent with the goals and objectives of the land use element, and with conditions of approval and a property maintenance agreement and the standards in the Santa Ana Municipal Code. This will address any potential negative impacts. Environmental review number 2021-84 will be filed for this project, as it is categorically exempt per sections 15.301 and 15.302 for existing facilities and new construction or conversions of small structures. There is no fiscal impact associated with this project. Staff's recommendation this evening is to approve CUP number 2022-04 as conditioned. That concludes my presentation. We have Stephen via Zoom available for questions. We also have a couple members of the church in the audience available for questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Does the commissioners have any questions for staff? Commissioner Ellery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question is, so that I read the report, the church is short 16 parking spaces, correct?
So based on an overall site assessment, the church would not be at a deficit. There is surface parking available on neighboring properties and would actually provide sufficient parking.
Okay, so thanks for that. Do we have any sense of how many new churches or places of worship or religious buildings have come into Santa Ana over the last 10 to 5 years seeking CUPs for parking? And the reason why I ask, I've been on this commission off and on for a while. And what I've seen is Santa Ana has become a destination for churches. I'm not really sure why, because many of the churches don't service or provide, don't proselytize in Santa Ana. They do it in other places. And so I'm wondering if we've ever done an assessment of that.
Perhaps senior staff might have some input over historical information of churches.
I'm specifically thinking of Templo Calvario.
Hate to consider myself senior, but Commissioner, any information that I could present to you tonight would be just based on memory over the past 10 or 11 years that I've been with the city. But it's important to also just know that churches are a use that's allowed by right in some zoning districts, while in others they require a conditional use permit. So unfortunately, I wouldn't have that information for you readily available this evening, but if it is important to your decision making, we could certainly provide it.
Yeah, it is somewhat important to my decision making. I think part of the issue is that as more buildings convert into churches, we lose more of a tax base, and that has long-term impacts. And so, just thinking on a prospective basis, I'd want to know that because I think it's important to know. I think right now that's it for my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Calderon, do you have any questions?
No questions for right now. Commissioner already touched on the points I wanted to discuss as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McLaughlin.
Can we go back and talk about the parking numbers again? There was a comment up there that said there appeared to be no issues with the parking. Whose comment is that? Is that staff or is that?
So that is based on staff's assessment on provided parking for the overall industrial park, as well as based on the combined mix of uses and the parking requirement. There is a total of 216 spaces required, where 268 are provided for the park. And so no deficit is identified.
But 268 are provided because, I mean, how is it 268 plus 216? Or is it just 268 is the maximum parking spaces you have?
Yes, so
and you
that
only need
is,
218.
the number of spaces provided for the overall site is 268, where only 216 are required. So they have a surplus of parking based on those
And
numbers.
surrounding the area, is there other businesses, industries? What's the parking surrounding the area?
As part of that industrial park, you have the subject building, so 2909 South Daimler, 2915 South Daimler, 2917 South Daimler, 2901 South Daimler, and 3009 South Daimler. So of those uses, we have the proposed church this evening, an office building, the gymnasium that is north of the church, and surface parking available, which is 3009. So of that, based on the parking requirements of the Santa Ana Municipal Code, what is required overall for all of those sites is 216 spaces, where they are able to provide more than that at 268.
And the surrounding area is essentially just industry, manufacturing and industry that's there. One shift basis, two shift basis.
So beyond the subject industrial park, or for the industrial park?
For the industrial park.
So for the industrial park, we have a gymnasium. We also have two office buildings and the church and surface parking. So the office parking rate is 3 per 1,000. The gymnasium was parked at 1 space per 180 square feet of the area dedicated to physical activity. The church was parked at 1 space per 50 square feet. And the surface parking does not have a parking requirement. It only adds to the pool of parking.
So when you go back to I heard you say a fitness center?
Yes, the gymnasium, the SC Cheer School that is north of the church building that is adjacent to it.
So there's a school adjacent with the church too?
It's a gymnasium.
It is something that came to Planning Commission at the beginning of the year, if you recall, and the Planning Commission approved the use. So it's not a school necessarily, it's a cheerleading facility that is open typically in the afternoon and in the
Did it
evenings.
require a separate CUP?
It did require a conditional use permit, which was considered and approved by the Planning Commission.
So
I have a point of clarification. Is that the item that we continued? Pending a assessment of environmental conditions?
It was not continued, it was actually approved. It was
Okay.
approved with the understanding that any mechanical equipment, it will provide whatever is required by the building code.
I thought that was coming back to us. I thought that was coming back to us.
I'm sorry, I still couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was coming back to us.
No, it was approved by the Planning Commission.
Okay.
Can I follow up on Mark's question, but ask it in a different way? You were talking about parking space per square footage. Okay, what generates the use of parking space? People, right? So the occupancy rate for the main hall is how many people can it hold?
Okay, the zoning code has two ways of calculating parking for churches. One, if there's fixed seating, and one, if there's no fixed seating. In this case, there's no fixed seating, so it's 1 per 50 square feet of area. And so that's actually the highest way you can calculate parking. So one of the things that that also staff look at in evaluating the church is what are the hours of operation of the other businesses that are on site, and when did they have their services, when they're going to have more people over at the site, based on the information provided by the applicant. And the applicant can provide additional information to the Planning Commission. Their services are going to be held on the weekends primarily. There might be some classes during the day, but they indicated that no services will be held during the days, weekdays. So based on that, the demand, most of those other businesses are closed. But even if they were open, based on the code requirements and based on what's on your staff report, looking at how the zoning code calculates parking based on use, they will still have 70 spaces more than required. When you take a look at all the uses at the site, their size, and what is required.
Then what accounts for when all those spaces are filled, then the surrounding area is filled with cars, and outside of the perimeter of that particular industrial area gets filled with cars?
Well,
Okay, let's say like what Easter might be a big event, right? But what if it happens every Sunday? I mean, is there a study that has been done on that yet?
it is not required because it meets the code requirements.
Okay,
Now,
so when that happens, even though the code does not look at it, should we be concerned as a commission?
well, I will say this.
Or do we limit the number of people as one of the conditions?
Well, you can say that if that happens, maybe the church can provide some type of parking management, like having an area where they just, park the vehicles next to each other, just like you do when you go to the Rose Bowl or any
Or
other event.
carpooling, or
the
ride
Hollywood Bowl.
bicycles?
Now, if you are going to parks uses, not just churches, but any use based on holidays, malls will need to provide a lot more parking during the holidays, but typically that's not the way it works. Those are a few days out of the year if that was to happen. But, 268 spaces is a lot.
Yeah, I got lost dropping off my wife in Irvine, and I was just driving around some industrial area trying to figure out where I was going, and I noticed on different types of churches there seemed to be parking problems, even though they probably met the standard at the time. So that brought up some curiosity on my part. Well, if the code says this, but then we create another problem by approving it, are we going to be asked later on to review this, or should we anticipate that in our ruling today? And I'm not saying just because of this one church, but I'm just thinking general, because Commissioner McLaughlin raised the issue about what's the history of the number of churches in the city. Which I thought that was a good question.
Yeah.
So at this point, we may meet the existing code, but we don't know if it's impacted. Should we have a condition should we have a condition to anticipate problems in the future?
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
No, it was just one of the things I'm just thinking out loud. What kind of lighting does this place have? And then the second thing is the emergency escape routes for a congregation. And will they be doing any cooking and, feeding there? Any social services?
So as far as the specific
Or daycare or
operation,
any of those kinds of things?
as far as daycare, to answer your question on daycare, there would be daycare provided for attendees of the church. This would not be separate to the church.
So there's not going to be a licensed childcare there on when church is on in session.
So, right, correct.
Okay. What kind of are they going to be serving food or homeless services or anything?
That was not included in the proposed operation of the church, but the applicant is available and can speak to the specifics of their activities that will be going on.
Hey, Nikki.
Do you have any other additional question, Commissioner Wu?
Yeah.
You're done? Okay. Commissioner McLaughlin, you were printing.
So I remember what was said earlier. It was stated that there were two locations for this church. One in Tustin, one in Santa Ana, correct?
Yes, it's no in Huntington Beach. Tustin
Oh.
and Huntington Beach.
Tustin and Huntington Beach?
Yes,
And then the third one is Santa Ana.
yes, this proposed application.
Okay, all right. So how do those three compare with respect to services rendered I mean, are they all the exact same kind of setup? Or is it something that, I mean, something that could be what starts out as a childcare center could turn into a intermediate or elementary school or pre-K through K school? Do we know how the other two churches are set up at this point in time?
As I understand, there is no school at the existing locations. Staff did reach out to those cities, and they did not have any complaints or any reported complaints or issues for those existing churches. But as far as specifically how these services compare or if they are the same, the applicant can speak to their specific operations of those churches as well.
Additionally, if you look at at the proposed conditions of approval, condition of approval number 7 says the school, as defined in the municipal code, preschool or child daycare operations is not permitted. So it's clearly stated as well. So if they were to change the use, that would be a violation of their conditional use permit that will allow the city to revoke their conditional use permit.
So they don't have an approved school.
That is correct. That is not what's in front of the commission. It is for a church, not for school.
Only the fact is that we've seen the situation in Santa Ana where the church starts out and then all of a sudden down the line, you have, and this is in an industrial area, you have a school. And then you have a larger school, and then you have a larger school.
Whether that happens or not in the future, that is not what's in front of the Planning Commission for consideration. And if that was to happen, that would be a violation of their conditional use permit.
That's why I'm asking the question, because I'm asking whether the other two churches have that kind of facility. And if you're saying they don't.
Correct.
then it's
And
okay if they
do you
say-
mind turning on the mic as well?
What's that?
Do you have your microphone on?
I have my microphone on.
Okay, thank you. It's just a little low, hard to hear.
Okay, well, again, I'm just trying to make some comparisons so we understand, because like I said, these types of situations evolve, and they evolve over time, and we just need to make sure that when we're making our first decision, that it's a decision that can withstand time. Am I in my boundaries, John?
I think Fabiola pointed out correctly what was before that planning
Okay.
commission tonight. So, and I think she was responsive to your concerns as to what may or may not happen, and those would be subject to additional decisions by the planning commission at that time.
Okay.
Any additional comments, Commissioner?
I'm good.
Commissioner Ramos?
Yes, thank you. I have questions for staff. I'm just wondering if the city has any experiences with similar requests that have came before the Planning Commission in the past where churches wanted to locate in industrial areas, and if there were any parking implications?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if there's any comparisons we can draw on So are there any examples of other churches that have located in industrial areas where we now see parking implications that maybe we did not see before?
The Santa Ana Municipal Code prohibits churches from locating in the industrial zoning districts. So you, as a commission, would not have seen any requests because they're just not allowed, even with a conditional use permit. This site, although in appearance somewhat industrial, is zoned professional, which allows conditional use permits with approval of, which allows churches with the approval of a conditional use permit. The code was amended about 4 years ago to actually allow churches in this type of zoning district with a CUP following a communication the city had received from an advocacy group stating that other forms of assembly were allowed in the P zone, the professional zone, but not churches, not religious assembly. So the commission and council approved the code amendment to allow churches in this zone to be more equitable with other assembly uses. But it's important to understand that even though from an appearance standpoint that this area appears industrial, this site happens to be zoned non-industrial, it's professional. As for any known parking impacts from churches in any other industrial areas, because churches aren't allowed in any other industrial areas, at least not, permitted in other industrial areas, we're unaware of any permitted churches that are generating parking impacts in quote industrial looking areas. If that helps answer the question.
It does a bit, and I think I'll ask a more specific question now. So I was thinking of Templo Calvario, who is to me it appeared industrial, but it might be zoned professionally. I know there's a lot of offices in the area as well. I don't attend their church, but I have been in the past. And I noticed what parking is like. I also worked in that area a couple years ago, and I knew what parking was like as an employee during service hours. So I'm just wondering if there's any learned lessons there that staff thinks the Planning Commission should consider today as we consider this item.
And if Commissioner, if you could just confirm that location, are you referring to 2609 West 5th Street?
Yeah, right by 5th and Fairview.
Okay, thank you. That location happens to be a specific development zoning district. So it is was previously industrial, but then was rezoned to become a specific development. Whereas this location was built and is currently zoned professional. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily an apples to apples comparison to compare the two, because that one was a industrial property that was rezoned and then retrofit with a church. And that one is operating as also a school. Whereas this proposal before the commission tonight is for a professional zone and not a school, just a church.
Thank you.
I want to follow up on her question. In Santa Ana, there are churches in shopping centers. There are churches along professional offices on 17th Street. And I'm trying to look at what has been approved in the past and what the decision to approve this CPUC. And how each one probably has an individual reason why there was a CPUC given. But then again, we have to look at the overall impact of the number of churches opening in shopping centers and along 17th Street. So I think this goes back to the original question that Mark asked and followed by Commissioner Ramos.
Commissioners, just if I can interject real quickly, a friendly reminder, what's before you tonight is an application for a CUP based on these specific facts and circumstances. Accordingly, your inquiry should be focused on that alone, ideally, in order to help you make the best decision.
Any additional comments, Commissioner Ramos?
I'll let others speak and then we can come back to me. Thank you.
Thank you. I think most of the commissioners, I think the concern is about the parking. And I'm looking at the site plans analysis of the parking, and I just want to understand a bit more clear if the tabulation, why the tabulation is only based off of the auditorium numbers and the high school youth number. And at what discretion, was it the city's discretion or was it the applicant's discretion to tabulate the high school youth room as only half that number, and with the reasoning that only half of the high school youth have driver's license?
So based on the zoning code, the area that is calculated in terms of parking is what is anticipated to be the religious meeting hall. And so that is the main auditorium, and staff also included the youth auditorium where there would be high school age children, as those areas would potentially be occupied with legal drivers and so would potentially have impacts for parking. And so that was included in the parking tabulation as well.
There's other discrete uses in that bill, in this proposed project. There's businesses. Well, not sorry. There's other proposed occupancies within this building. There's a business occupancy. There is assembly for meetings. I'm wondering why not everything was tabulated, and it's just only the auditorium.
Sure. So again, what is required by the code is to park the religious meeting halls. As far as the other offices that are existing, those would not be anticipated to be in use during service hours. And so I guess what would be more intensive in terms of parking, which is that auditorium and that high school auditorium as well, is what was parked.
Does this specific address have a parking agreement with the other tenants on this parcel, or are we assuming that there is a co-parking situation?
There is a share agreement.
Okay.
And if you recall, it was the same situation with the cheerleading facility. So all the businesses, including the vacant or the one parcel that is developed with a surface parking, is to serve all the buildings in the complex.
Okay. Thank you. And additionally, there's a table on the staff report that denotes the hours of operations for the three addresses, one being vacant. I may have missed it within the staff report, but is there a specific hours of operation within the weekdays? Because there's a note that says minor office use, but not a specific clear hours of operation that might conflict with the other properties.
That site has been used as an office. Offices at the point of occupancy of the more intensive use, that would be evaluated at the time. Operate off-peak church hours, similar to operate 6 a.m. to 5.
Right. My question was, there wasn't any specific hours of operations for the proposed church during the weekdays. That's why. Because my assumption is there wasn't any listing of weekend hours for the other uses. So I'm assuming there wouldn't be any conflict during the weekends, but I'm just wondering what the hours of operations would be for the church during the weekdays.
If you look at the resolution, condition of approval number 4 tells you what their hours are. Sunday from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., weekdays from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m., Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Any changes to the hours of operation shall require a review from the planning manager to ensure impacts to surrounding properties and ensure parking is minimized.
Thank you. And to enforce this, would it be at the discretion of the neighboring properties to call the city if there's any conflict in what's been stated, or would it be the city's responsibility to follow up on this?
That is correct. If the use of the church is creating a nuisance and an impact to surrounding properties, and we receive complaints, that's something that will be evaluated.
Thank you. Commissioner Alderete.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may have asked this question, so I apologize. But as I was reading the staff report, the parking justification for this is that there will be limited parking during regular weekly business hours. And so I'm wondering how we square that with allowing operations of the auditorium and the meeting rooms from Wednesday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. because those are squarely within the weekday business hours.
As I understand from the applicant, those hours of operation would be for smaller meetings or services. It would not be the larger anticipated assembly.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I have a question. What's the capacity for the auditorium?
Based on occupancy, it looks like 598 occupants.
Just out of curiosity, with 3 different locations, how many people are part of each of these congregations?
Sorry, could you
How
clarify
many
your
people
question?
you have the congregation that's being requested for here in Santa Ana, you have Huntington Beach, you have Tustin. Each of those as a separate entity, how many people do they have in their church for that particular location?
You may want to refer that question to the applicant.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do we have any written communication?
We have not received any written communication for this item.
Thank you. Now the public hearing is now open. Would the applicant like to speak on the matter? Do we have any
Should we go to
comments
the
on
Zoom
Zoom?
first?
Well, my name is Rick Talcott. I'm with Compass Bible Church. We have our architect that has designed most of this for us that I think is available online, but I'd like to address a couple things just to clarify matters. We are not interested in doing a school. We never have been, we never will. That's not part of what we want to do. That's why we looked at the condition and we were totally happy with that condition. Also want to clarify one other thing. We do have a church in Aliso Viejo. That is the mother church of Compass Bible Church. And then our approach is when we get to a certain size, we plant new churches in other communities. And so that's our intention here, is to plant in another community. Our Tustin church is about 250 people. Our Huntington Beach church started out about a couple hundred people. They have much more space than we're talking about here. They see about 1,500 people today, but they have a lot more square footage in an industrial park in Huntington Beach. And they've met all the requirements that the city of Huntington Beach has put together for their requirements. And then just one comment on my end on the parking. We know there are times like at Easter and other events that parking is impacted, but we have to be able to handle that parking to manage our church well. And that's what we really want to do. We have a group of guys that know how to park. We know where the intense times are, which is on the weekends when the other tenants really are not here. That's why we think this is such a great use. If it is a problem, we would add a service. Like right now, we're just anticipating a 9 o'clock service, but then we could add an 11 o'clock service on Sunday. We could add a Saturday night service, and that allows us to spread our congregation out over many different timeframes. So I hope that addresses some of your questions. I am happy to answer any other questions that maybe I missed as I was listening to you, but we do thank you for taking this matter up this evening.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, just to clarify, there was no communication via Zoom from the public?
We'll get to that once the commission has asked the applicant questions and everything. That'll be the next thing.
Does any of the commissioners have any comments or questions for the applicant? Commissioner Alderete.
Yes, hi. Thank you for coming forward and speaking. I was wondering if you could let me know, or if you know, the percentage of your membership that lives in the city of Santa Ana.
And we don't know that at the present time.
At this time, okay. Can you give me an idea of why you decided to come into Santa Ana?
Well, it's again, we get to a certain size and we want to replicate ourselves. And so we did that in Huntington Beach, and we did that in Tustin. And we feel like Santa Ana is a good place. We think some of the people from Tustin will gravitate down into the Santa Ana location, but we also think we can meet the needs of the citizens of Santa Ana as well. We're not doing any cooking. I heard that question earlier. We don't do that. We may bring in some food from the outside caterers or something for events once in a while. But we're focused on Southern California, and then within that, the cities that we can touch and service the best is what we want to do.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Calderon.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. More will come later on, but are there any special events planned for the year for your church?
For the new year?
Or for the whole year as a whole?
We have traditionally done like a Halloween alternative event where we do a free event where there's games and free candy in a very controlled environment. In the other cities that we do that, it's subject to a special permit application, and we would walk through those steps if we were to do that. That's been a traditional thing. Obviously, Easter and Christmas are big events where people tend to want to come to church more often, and so those would be those events. But otherwise, we would look at it being involved in the community and some of the community events. We found that in some areas that Tustin has Tiller Days, so we join with the community in whatever events that they have, and we try to be part of the community and bringing our people in and supporting it. But as far as other big events, we might do some outreach events from time to time in the city, but we would do that all respectfully and then in accordance with whatever special permit rules that are required. Now, we may have a men's breakfast on Saturday morning just to bring the men in, and the meetings during the week when the other businesses are there are smaller groups. It's like a women's group that has a women's Bible study. We also do a ministry to new moms that have special needs, and we try to help them with very practical insights and guidance as to how they can raise their children in individual ways. So our main church services are on the weekends, on Sundays, the normal times when people come to church. We think it's a good use.
Okay, and then just a follow-up question. How many programs are there on the weekends?
We would start with 9 o'clock. We would do church from 9 to 10:15, 10:30, and then, we're probably gone. If we have two services, then there's one at 9 and one at 11. So we have cars come in, they park, they come in with their kids, they go to church just like any other church. And when they're done, they leave, and then the next group would come in and do the same thing.
So total, like how many would you say then for the day? So 4, 5?
Well, on Sunday, we would only have 2 services.
Okay,
And then if we grew past that, we have found that Saturday night is easier than having another service on Sunday. We got one pastor, he's preaching, and to do 1 on Saturday night and 2 on Sunday is a lot easier than doing 3 on Sunday or 4 on Sunday.
gotcha.
We wanted to leave it open on the weekends to be able to do some of that if we did get some growth. And then we do move people around. I mean, we do ask people, hey, we know you want to come to church on Sunday. You've come to church on Sunday all your life. Would you consider coming Saturday night? So we would have more room for visitors and others in the community that want a more traditional time when they can come on a Sunday.
Gotcha.
But that's, I would say 2 on Sunday right now when we start would be great if we have enough demand from the community to do that.
Okay, and then the final question that I have is just looking at the webpage, Compass Bible Church, Huntington Beach, are the same programs going to be implemented here? Because I see kids, junior high, high school, college, Bible class, and women. Is the same?
Sure, people come to church with their families. The parents go in the auditorium, their high school kids go into the high school room, the junior high kids go into their room, and then the elementary age kids go into their room, and they all have age appropriate lessons for them. But they come in as families, they go to church, and then they leave as families.
Gotcha.
So when you see Huntington Beach, which has been one of our successful church plants, if you will, and they have more room, they will want to add different programs from time to time. So we know, we can only service this space. And so we don't want it uncomfortable. We don't want it crowded. We would rather add another service and grow that way.
Got it. Okay. Final question that I just thought about right now. Are there any opportunities for to make referrals out to you guys or to help youth that can go into your program? I know I'm under the impression, right now, I don't want to assume that it's welcoming towards everybody, but is there a referral system that we can connect people, the community with, if they need support or anything like that?
I mean, there could be in the future. For example, in Aliso Viejo, we have a tutoring program, a free tutoring program. It's run after school. They're credentialed teachers. We don't charge the students anything to come. And they come in and we teach them science, and we teach them math, and we teach them English, and we teach them physics. And then we hope they fall in love with our church along the way and bring their parents back. But we do provide services like that from time to time. But generally, we're trying to help the people in the community and trying to take our core values and teach those core values to the people.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry, I just thought of another question. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Are there any different languages that are available, right, for the public here?
So currently right now, for the Santa Ana location, it would probably be only in English. For our Aliso Viejo church, which is a little bit larger, where we have 70,000 square feet, we do have Hispanic outreach to Hispanic speaking people. And that happens every Sunday. And that's become, quite effective. So we would just take a look at the needs of the people in the immediate community. But our history has been, over the last 15 or so years, that we really only end up with 2 language groups.
Awesome. Those are all my questions. Thank you so much.
Although Huntington Beach did have an outreach to the Vietnamese community, and they were doing some things with smaller groups of people that only spoke Vietnamese.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McLaughlin, do you have any comments for the applicant? Thank you. Commissioner Wu?
The name Compass, I see that around. Are they all associated with each other?
Compass Bible Churches in Aliso Viejo, Huntington Beach, and Tustin are all part of the Compass Bible Church.
What about down the highway on 55 towards Costa Mesa?
We do not have a church in that location.
So there could be other business churches called Compass something, right?
Yeah, it may be something other like Compass Mission Church or Compass Fellowship or.
Are you part of a national organization?
We are not.
And so how are you funded?
We're funded by the generous contribution of the congregants to come to church on the weekends. And so what we do with these is obviously a church that doesn't have anybody. We do fund them in their startup time period. And we have found, because we've also planted a church in Boise, Idaho, and we planted a church in Hill Country, Texas. But we found about 15 to 18 months, they become self-sufficient on their own. All of a sudden, there's enough people that contribute. But when we come into a community, we're committed to a community. You can see these plans, they're gorgeous. This costs a lot of money. And so we want to come in and we want to be part of the community. We want to be here for a long time. That's why we're willing to spend the kind of money we're going to spend. We hope to spend.
Any additional comments? Commissioner Ramos?
Yes, I do have some comments, but I'm wondering if we can go to public comment first. So I sit right behind the screen and I've seen somebody with their hand up since the meeting started. Just in the interest of time, I'm wondering if we can go to them, or should I give my comments first? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you are attending this meeting in person and would like to comment on this item, please fill out a request to speak form and turn it into secretary. If you are participating via Zoom and would like to comment on this item, please select the hand icon and unmute yourself. If you are calling in and would like to comment on this item, please dial *9 and press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello. Does everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you could state your name, that would be great.
My name is Steve Camp. I'm with Elements Architecture, representing Compass Bible Church. My office is at 6B Liberty, Aliso Viejo, California. And tonight I just want to thank you, planning commissioners, for considering our project. Thanks to the planners for the work that they've done to help prepare us for this. And what I'd like to do is specifically address a couple of the comments that were made by the commissioners regarding the parking and the use of the facility. First of all, with regard to the calculation of the parking, we specialize in doing churches. We've done dozens of churches for not just Compass Bible Church, but other churches throughout Orange County and actually throughout the country. And what we've found is that these professional sites are perfectly compatible to be used in conjunction with churches. The reason is, in terms of good planning, there's a large amount of parking that's required for a church on Sundays, typically on Sunday mornings, and on the weekends, which basically sits empty during the week. During the week, on a site such as this one, you have office tenants, industrial tenants that are using the parking when the church does not use it. So the benefit is that you have parking lots that are being built that are used throughout the week instead of just during the week or during the weekend if it's specifically for that use. So it's a really good use of shared space in our cities. It makes a lot of sense. And it's worked out well, not just with Compass in Huntington Beach and Aliso Viejo, which are really identical situations. Their shared parking has worked out very well throughout those locations. And we anticipate that it'll work out well here as well. In this case, we actually have an added benefit that there's 52 excess spaces from what's required according to the code. Now, the code requires us to park not only the main auditorium, but the other spaces within the church, even though typically people that are attending the church on the weekend will transition through some of these other spaces, and or they'll bring their families, including junior high, high school kids. Kids in high school typically are not driving to church. We wish they did, but high school kids only go to church with their parents. We're still providing additional parking for the high school space that's identified on the floor plan, regardless of what that case might be. So in terms of the operation and the use of the building, there's quite a few things that go on there. We have administrative office, which is only utilized during the week, and typically not close up, not used on the weekends. There's other meeting rooms which are used for classrooms for kids. These kids are they're not driving to church, they're riding to church with their families. We do have a small sort of a kitchen space that's for serving, typically coffee and things like that for transitional times before.
Thank you, sir. We're at 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Just trying to clarify some of the comments that were made by the commission. And certainly I'm able to respond to any other questions that are architectural related or operations based on our experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
He's the architect. He's answering questions for you guys. He gets 5
I thought we opened up
We're for the
for
public
comments
public
first.
comments.
Yeah, but he's.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I apologize. Can you, if you wanted to continue, please continue.
Oh, I think I'd just like to make myself available to answer any additional questions from the commissioners.
Thank you.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead and state your name.
Okay, my name is David Jaimes de la Iglesia Metodista Unida del Getsemaní UMC, and I'm pastor there. And I just wanted to just kind of touch on a little bit about why churches are coming to Santana. And for some folks that are on the board or on the chair, they're trying to figure out why Santana is so a place, because normally in church planning, there is this sense of coming to urban settings compared to suburban settings where churches are really attracted to expand their member base to much more younger, hipper, more younger professionals instead of that. There are many locations around there, but for some reason, Santana, downtown Fullerton, the downtowns are really the spaces. We're not talking about downtown, of course, but one of the things that I have noticed as a pastor is that churches do come and go. Churches, similarly like small businesses, come in, go around, close up shop pretty quick when it just doesn't turn out. I'm definitely, as a pastor, I'm not opposed to any church and wanting to definitely serve the community, but that's definitely part of this. And one of the things that I truly hold important as any faith community that wants to make their home in Santana is to know that this community has a lot of history with churches and complicated history. And whoever decides to definitely be a part of the continuing history may be it for the good of Santana and its local residents, because that's what our faith calls us to love our neighbor as ourselves, and not simply just to be a satellite campus for mega churches that come from South Orange County or that are looking for cheap space just to set up shop. Definitely not making the case for that here, but definitely wanted to kind of give insight into some of the trends that have been happening in the quote unquote church planning world, where there has been an uptick of interest of planning churches or starting churches that are that don't really benefit the community. They really just benefit membership growth, and ultimately it doesn't really plan out unless there is a committed community that desires to stay and that desires to grow and desires to do outreach, but not hopefully outreach that is more than just paper bags of food and some other things. So I just wanted to give some insight to that. And I know that that as a pastor, it's difficult for when serving Latino, Latinx, undocumented, marginalized folks that are looking always for support and resources, and sometimes it's very difficult to have to explain organizations like churches that come and go and when they go. So I just wanted to raise that and wanted to thank the commission
Thank
for
you.
asking me.
Time is up. Chair, we have no more speakers.
Thank you. If that's the case, we'll continue. Commissioner Ramos.
Thank you. Um, Thank you for doing that as well. I know members of the public sometimes wait a long time to speak, having been on the other side as well. I have questions for the applicant. If the applicant could please come back to the podium. Thank you. Hi. So I think this was asked by another commissioner as well, but I'd like to ask it again, maybe in a different way. So I'm wondering why Compass Bible Church has chosen to come to Santa Ana. And I know that when planning a church, you have a lot of options. You have a lot of cities you could go to. Also thinking of the cities where you currently are, Aliso Viejo, Huntington Beach, and Tustin, wondering how the demographics there and the type of community that you're used to serving, how that compares to Santa Ana. Specifically thinking of Santa Ana as a very young city, a city with a lot of residents that are very low income, a city where a lot of the majority of the residents are renters, many are undocumented or we have mixed status households, and many are also monolingual and only speak Spanish. So in hearing you say that you're coming here without a base in Santa Ana, but hoping to serve the city, I'm having just a little bit of a hard time understanding that. So I'm wondering if you can elaborate on why you all chose the city of Santa Ana. Yeah, just why did you all choose the city of Santa Ana?
So all of our churches are different. Aliso Viejo is very different than Huntington Beach. And the Tustin Church is still in the sphere of influence of Santa Ana. We don't have a cookie cutter approach necessarily to where we're going to go. We sit down and we prayerfully consider where the appropriate place to go would be. We start with about 100 people from our main church in Aliso Viejo that have worked in several different ministries in Aliso Viejo with younger children and middle-aged people, millennials, and older people like myself. And what we want to do is have a core group of people that love the Lord with all their heart, soul, and mind, and love people and want to care for people. And so we feel like we can do that in any city that we go to. And we realize that there are going to be some special challenges here, but we feel like this is something that we are compelled to do. So it's not like we did a big marketing study and we decided this or this. We felt like within our sphere of influence that this would be a good place for us to locate. I mean, it sounds a little subjective, but in reality, some of it is subjective.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Pham, I'm going to interrupt real quick. Steve, the architect, would like to speak and answer some to that question if you'd allow him.
Okay, please do.
Steve, if you could unmute yourself, then you have the, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, I'm not sure that it's understood by everyone here, but the Tustin, what's currently the Tustin location is now going to be moving to this location. So there's going to be, maybe you already understand that, but it doesn't seem like that's clear. So there will be, the idea is to have Aliso Viejo, which is the primary church, Huntington Beach, which is independent, and then this location here in Santa Ana would be the third. Just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Commissioner?
So just to clarify, if this location opened, then their Tustin location would close?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wu?
I'm just kind of curious, are the people here representative of the leadership of the church to be in Santa Ana?
I'm just the business guy from Aliso Viejo, so I'm not representative. But we do have our senior pastor, Mike Elliott, who, if he would just raise his hand, he is going to be the leader of this church. The other people in attendance, the general contractor that has helped us plan through some of these and help design and do things like that from the Aliso Viejo churches here. And then the others, I believe, are part of the current group that would be part of the church.
Oh, so it's people that familiar with the workings of the plan, proposed plan, but not necessarily representative of the people involved. I'm just kind of curious that I just see all men here and men on the phone. I'm just curious. It has no bearing.
They could have brought their wives with them, but they thought this was more of a business type of meeting. But yeah, I think. Oh, there's a women's event tonight.
I can speak to that briefly. Am I unmuted? This is Steve Camp, architect.
Yes, Steve, you're unmuted. You go ahead.
Okay. As Rick Talcott had mentioned previously, there's other locations in Orange County. Aliso Viejo represents a region, which is South Orange County. Huntington Beach represents another region, which reaches as far as Long Beach and is typically sort of Westminster, that sort of northern coastal region. And then this church is represented as larger than just Santa Ana, which is very central in Orange County. And the population, at least the goal, is for it to reach those expanding beyond Santa Ana, which would include places like Tustin. I guess you could look at a map and see that churches typically will reach a region that is suitable for the size of the facility. This church, although the plan shows 500 seats in the auditorium, it's more realistic to be around 300 to 400. So obviously there's a limitation that's less than, let's say, our Aliso Viejo location, which there's close to 75,000 square feet, an auditorium that will seat 1,000. But still, it can easily reach into the surrounding neighborhoods and a little bit larger region that goes beyond Santa Ana. And Rick, you could certainly correct me if that's not stated accurately, but that's typically what we're seeing. So it's not necessarily just this small region, but it can extend beyond that, if that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we already addressed public comments, so we'll move past that. Does the applicant have any final remarks? No. Okay. So this concludes the public hearing. Does the commissioners have any final questions for staff? Okay. I just have a few quick questions. I think my only concern when it comes to church activities is traditionally we see a church with its own parcel. And then activities from that church usually spills out within the landscaped area for younger youth. They have activities outside. Since this is a commercial parcel, would it be within the commission's ability to recommend that there's languages within the conditional approvals that limits all activities concerning the church to be within the walls of the church and not to be spilled out onto the parking lot?
Absolutely, that's within your purview. Also, too, you may want to consider that, that they contact the planning division if they're going to do an activity outside on the weekends. A lot of churches might have from time to time something that is outside, but definitely that's within your purview.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would be something for the commissioners to consider, just to have some language in place. Other than that, no other questions or comment on my end. Okay. Is there a motion to approve this matter?
Yeah, this isn't a motion to approve. My comments are not that.
Okay.
I have to say that I'm troubled by this project for at least two reasons. Under goal 1 of the land use element, which is to balance land use to address community needs or create community space. This project doesn't do that. The applicant stated that this project is to, initially, he said, attract people between Tustin and Huntington Beach, and then later to service existing members in Tustin. Services will not be provided in Spanish or Vietnamese or any other language but English. And I can't really wrap my head around how this is in service of the overwhelming majority of Santa Ana residents. Under goal 4 and 5 of the land use element, I don't see this as enhancing the quality of life. Again, it's sort of repetitive, but there's no service to the people, no acknowledgement of the diversity of Santa Ana. It's not Aliso Viejo, it's not Huntington Beach, and particularly to those who are non-English dominant. So I'm just struggling as to how it meets any of these 3 goals in the land use element.
Would staff like to respond?
Was that a question or was that a statement?
No, that's a statement. I didn't put a question mark at the end.
Thank you. Do any of the other commissioners have any other additional comments?
I don't have any additional comments, but I have to just reiterate what Commissioner Alderete stated. Even in the questions I asked, I didn't see the clear connection to how this would serve or benefit existing Santa Ana residents.
And I also have some concerns, although the concerns I have, I don't think that given the way staff look at the CPUC, what are those concerns, would give me any reason not to vote for it, but I'm struggling to find a reason to vote for it. I am very concerned about the spirit of our general plan and the community goals that we set there. We began a transformation for the city to start reflecting those that have not been heard in the community. And I think that in everything that we do in the city, in all the department need to kind of reflect that. For the first time, for instance, Artesia Pilar got $600,000 in park improvement. We haven't had that in years and decades. So when we start seeing changes, we want to see it go in the direction that reflects the needs of the community. And the needs of the community, unfortunately, there's a lot of disenfranchised and people who are impoverished.
Thank you, Commissioner Wu. Seeing that there is no motion for approvals, is there a motion to deny to CUP.
Mr. Vice Chair and Commissioners, I would just advise the commission that if there is a motion to deny the CUP tonight, it would be necessary for the commission to make a finding on record that does not support the CUP. In the proposed resolution that is before you tonight, staff has assembled the findings required by SAMC 41638 that need to be made in support or to find for the approval of the CUP. If the Planning Commission's decision is to be the reverse, then at least one of those findings, the decision would have to be that one of those findings cannot be made, and you would need to make that that election on the record tonight. Or alternatively, you can work with staff and they can help you make that as well. But the findings themselves tonight, as proposed by staff, would not be relevant to, or they would not be appropriate as is for a denial, if that's the commission's purview.
But John, just curiosity on this. All right. Eric brought up a number of points that were, he didn't agree with the point that staff put out. So there was how many points were made by staff?
There are 5 findings required by the code, Commissioner McLaughlin, and
We need one
41638.
if we decide to have one finding that we don't agree with, we can deny it.
That is correct. I would just defer to staff to see if they had enough information from you to for that finding to be evident from the record. But yes, you are correct. It would be one finding that cannot be made if it is the commission's purview to move to deny the CUP.
Okay, given that, Eric, do you have one finding that?
Yeah, it looks, thank you, Mark. I can repeat what I said. I would feel more comfortable if staff could draft it up. I'm not the best at kind of articulating denials on the fly. But really what it was is I went to the staff report under goal 1 of the land use element, which was to balance the land use to address community needs or create community space. And I said that this project doesn't do that, that the applicant had stated that it was meant to attract people between Tustin and Huntington Beach. And then later, I wouldn't call it amended that, but just added additional color that it was also going to service existing members in Tustin. And I thought, well, that doesn't really service Santa Ana residents. And if services are only going to be provided in English, that doesn't service the many residents of Santa Ana and isn't in service of the majority of residents of Santa Ana. And I applied the same reasoning to goals 4 and 5 of the land use element.
Commissioner Alderete, it would seem that most of those concerns are germane to the finding number 5 that would ordinarily need to be made. That is that the proposed use will not adversely affect the general plan or any specific plan of the city. I would just kindly suggest that you clarify that for staff so they have appropriate direction.
I think that makes sense. So, go ahead.
Sorry, apologies. Can you please clarify what finding we're focusing on right now? Which of 1 through 5?
It was number 5.
Thank you. Commissioner Alderete, if you would accept the friendly amendment, I would also be interested in making sure that we add finding number 1 as a reason for denial.
Sure.
And I would like to second that motion. Sorry, and I would like to second your motion.
Okay, thank you.
There's no motion yet.
Commissioner Alderete, was that a motion to deny?
Yes, it was a motion.
And it was seconded by Commissioner Ramos. Okay.
Can we, if that is the motion in the second, can we have the secretary read it back?
If I could get clarification of what the motion is, then yes. other than just to deny, I'm assuming?
Motion was made to deny the project based on finding number 1 and finding number 5 not being able to be made by the planning commission, based on the fact that the commission feels that the proposed church will not be providing the space for the residents of Santa Ana, but rather it will be served the members already from other churches, including Tustin and Huntington Beach. And if it does not provide services in Spanish, therefore, it's really not to serve the members or the residents of Santa Ana. And if I misread the statement that was made, please correct me, but that was my understanding.
I'd like to make a slight amendment.
Sure.
And so you mentioned because it doesn't take care of Spanish. I think it has to be bilingual. It has to be bilingual, not just pertaining to Spanish.
That'll be fine. I heard Spanish specifically, but that's.
I also said Vietnamese.
We also heard Vietnamese.
What?
I also said Vietnamese, but I wasn't trying to.
That's where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other option. Yeah. Yeah. So.
That's a motion with an amendment. That's correct.
So we have the motion and the second at this point in time.
Commissioner, just to, if I might add, a couple things. If the motion is to deny, you may wish to clarify if you're denying with or without prejudice on the matter. With prejudice would ordinarily mean that it could not come back. Without prejudice would mean that the matter could return or could appear before you once again. And additionally, if your purview is to deny and that motion is successful, this matter would also come back to you procedurally as a resolution for the business calendar on the consent calendar, a business item on the consent calendar. And finally, I would just advise you if the motion is to deny and that motion is successful, then the applicant should be advised of their appeal rights as well.
Thank you, John.
A point of clarification. This is the first time I hear a request for that clarification, whether it's with or without prejudice. Can you please define what prejudice means in this context?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Ramos. With prejudice would ordinarily mean that the matter, based on the same facts and circumstances, could not return before you for essentially another decision based on the same facts and circumstances. If it is without prejudice, the matter may return to you.
Okay, so if one stated that we are taking this vote with prejudice, it would be that based on these same facts and circumstances, we would hold the same vote?
That's the theory in a sense, that if it's denied without, if a matter is denied with prejudice, then it cannot come typically before a decision-making body based on the same facts and circumstances. It could return on changed facts and circumstances.
Thank you.
So if they change their facts and circumstances and come back again, it would be a different CPUC. That's what you're saying. But this particular CPUC, as it is structured and being proposed, cannot come back if we ask for it to be denied with prejudice.
At least on the same facts as you have them before you tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Commission, just as a example, several years ago, the Commission voted to deny a car wash project on 17th and Maybury that was denied without prejudice. So the applicant made some modifications to the project and then filed for a new CUP application that came back. It was changed project, but they were able to come back and the Commission voted to approve it. If you deny with prejudice, and basically even with those modifications, the project could not come back before the Commission.
Commissioner Alderete.
Thank you.
Yeah, so my inclination is, I'm a lawyer. It's rare that a court would grant you out of the box a motion, say, to dismiss with prejudice. I've had it done, but that's not typical. And so I do think it would be advisable to have it be done without prejudice. So in the event, because I think the issue is going to be that if we do it with prejudice, how much of a change allows it to then be reconsidered again? Does it grow out of the same facts? And that will be hard to determine. Or it's not readily apparent. And there are lawsuits all about whether it is germane to the same issues. And so I think it makes more sense to do it without prejudice. And if they have ideas about how they can change it, it could come back at that point.
Thank you.
I will ask, I'm sorry for interjecting, but if this matter was to come back to Planning Commission, if you deny it without prejudice, and is there changes to the proposal of the church that you would like the church to propose to the commission, is there any direction that you can give the applicant if there's any support, if they were to make changes to the church, the way they operate, if they make changes to the operational characteristics, will that be something that if they were to come back, will the Planning Commission consider?
Commissioner Already.
Yeah, so it's not that I don't like the church. It's that I don't think it meets the land use goals that are articulated. The land use goals that are articulated. I don't want to prejudge it and give them a list of things because I don't speak for the commission. So I say that will depend.
Because if that is the case, you can continue the item, provide direction to the church, and say this is, if you want support from the commission, this is what we believe is what will gain our support. If you want to deny, the project, it is within your purview. However, if it's going to come back to you guys, and if they make the changes, why not continue and provide direction to the applicant and also to staff, if that's something to consider.
I will speak for myself. Based on what I heard today from the applicant in your words and by your presence, I have to look at the strongest argument to deny it based on what Eric was talking about, compatibility with the community. Because we are a city that is trying to build community and be inclusive of the people in that community. And what we've seen is that those organizations that do their homework by growing out from the community and growing are the ones that really help to strengthen the city. It's not about them, it's about us and the people of the city. And it's embedded in our general plan and our vision for the city. And I think that as we look at the kind of services being offered by businesses and churches and things, I'm taking that into consideration, that what kind of citizen you will be. There are two ways to help people. One, you do it for people, but you're not empowering them. And I think that this city has spent a lot of time on empowering those that have not had a voice. And I think that's what started just rising from the presentation. If that is addressed, I'll be willing to rehear it.
Yes, thank you. I don't feel comfortable continuing this item, and my second for denial stands.
As we stand, there's a motion for denial with a friendly amendment that the language needed to be bilingual rather than Spanish. And from my understanding, this is going to be a denial without prejudice. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes, and I second that.
Madam Secretary, can you take a roll call?
Commissioner Alderete,
Yes.
Commissioner Calderon,
Aye.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramos,
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pham,
Aye.
Chair Morrissey. Motion has been approved for denial with majority vote with Chair Morrissey absent.
Thank you. And to clarify, this will be a denial without prejudice. This concludes the business calendar. Moving on to comments. Are there any staff member comments?
I'm sorry, forgive me. Commissioners, I don't know if I know our information for appeal is stated in the agenda materials, but the applicant should be advised of their rights of appeal under the Santa Ana Municipal Code. Ordinarily, those rights would run when your resolution denying the CUP is brought back before you on the business calendar at the next meeting. So.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, the 10 days essentially in short would start from the next meeting. I think that our representatives might have left chambers already. I don't know if they quite heard that, but that's just for the record.
So this will come back in 10 days.
It will come back in the next meeting
It will
with
come
a
back at the next
resolution or
regularly scheduled
denial.
meeting. The time period for appeal for the applicant to exercise their appeal rights would begin to run at the approval of that resolution denying the CUP, which will take place at your next regularly scheduled meeting.
Point of clarification, has staff walked out to inform them of their appeal rights? Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's noted publicly now, so and the meeting's recorded. So I think we should be in the clear. Okay. As we were saying, there's any staff member comments?
There was the director had mentioned about speaking with the commission about changing the meeting date to be opposite, for council, to be first or third for council and then second and fourth for planning commission. However, there are some additional issues that we have to look into in order to even have that discussion. So that is going to come to the planning commission at a later date for discussion.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the commissioners?
I just have a question for staff. Do we have any updates on the housing element?
Not at this time. It's still being reviewed by HCD. We have not received any comments on the revised housing element that was submitted to HCD addressing their comments.
And are we still falling in compliance with their deadlines, or what was the status on that?
Well, no, we're not in compliance with their deadlines. There was an additional state law that was passed allowing cities to take more time to come into compliance. The caveat in doing that is that cities will only have 1 year to do any rezoning required to accommodate the RENA. In this case, the city of Santa Ana doesn't need to do any rezoning of any parcels. We have enough zoning and capacity to accommodate the RENA. So we don't anticipate any issues in complying once they review and once we address all their comments.
Thank you for that update. And also just thank you to staff. Thank you to our legal counsel for ensuring that we're complying with any laws that apply to matters we're discussing.
Thank you. Seeing there's isn't any other comments, this regular meeting is adjourned. The next regular meeting will be held on Monday, April 25th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you.
Interesting.
The recording has stopped.